a.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Charno.
And I'm Hemkaur Saroya, and on the show today, there is cautious optimism on a possible ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has stated that there is hope that Hamas may accept what he labelled as an extraordinarily generous truce deal by Israel and release of hostages. We'll bring you the details of this on the show today.
Also on the show, we bring you more updates coming in from the Russia-Ukraine front. Reports say that a missile that landed in Ukraine's Kharkiv on the 2nd of January was from North Korea. The debris is said to be of the North Korean Hwasong 11 series ballistic missile, as per a United Nations report, pointing to a violation of the arms embargo on North Korea. We will get you the details of this on the show as well. Let's get you started with the headlines.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he's hopeful Hamas would accept an extraordinarily generous offer to halt Israel's Gaza offensive, in return for the release of hostages.
US President Biden holds separate calls with leaders from Qatar, Egypt over Gaza ceasefire talks, discusses the dangers of a military escalation.
Yemen's Houthis target 2 US destroyers in the vessel Cyclades in the Red Sea, as well as the MSC Orion in the Indian Ocean, claims the Iran-aligned group's military spokesperson.
The debris from a missile that landed in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on 2nd of January was from a North Korean Hwasong 11 series ballistic missile. United Nations sanctions monitors tell a Security Council committee.
Four people have been killed and 32 injured in a Russian missile attack on what locals call the Harry Potter Castle in the southern Ukrainian port of Odessa.
Three US law enforcement officials were killed and 5 others injured in a shootout as they were serving a warrant at a home in southern state of North Carolina.
Janata Dal Secular Critical Core Committee meet today to decide on Indian lawmaker Prajwal Ravana's suspension from the party 2 days after a sexual harassment case was registered against him.
Rafael Nadal's farewell tour is picking up steam. The record 5-time champion overcomes a second set wobble to see off Pedro Cashin and reach the round of 16 at the Madrid Masters.
Now, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken discussed the urgent need to reduce tensions in West Asia as he met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Blinken highlighted that the utmost need of the hour is to achieve a ceasefire and that Washington will continue efforts in this regard.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly.
Blinken also underscored the need for sustaining an increase in humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Hamas delegation will return to Cairo with the response on the Gaza truce. Earlier, negotiators for Hamas met Qatari and Egyptian mediators about the phased ceasefire proposal Israel presented over the weekend.
Israel's proposal involved the release of fewer than 40 of the roughly 130 hostages believed to be still held in Gaza. In exchange, Palestinians jailed in Israel would be freed. The second phase of the truce would consist of a period of sustained calm, which is Israel's compromised response to a Hamas demand for a permanent ceasefire.
Meanwhile, President Biden, on a phone call with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, discussed the deal to secure the release of hostages together with an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Biden confirmed that the United States, together with Egypt and Qatar, would work to ensure the full implementation of its terms.
Amidst the negotiations, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing pressure on multiple fronts. Israel is voicing concern that the International Criminal Court could be preparing to issue arrest warrants for government officials on charges related to the conduct of its war against Hamas. Prosecutors from the ICC interviewed staff from Gaza's two biggest hospitals about possible crimes in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu is also facing pressure from far-right allies to reject a new Gaza ceasefire, jeopardizing his government's stability.
On the other hand, thousands of protesters rallied in Tel Aviv demanding the release of around 130 hostages still held in Gaza. Protesters scuffled with Israeli police after blocking roads in Tel Aviv, while 5 protesters were arrested.
Meanwhile, in the US, Columbia University has begun suspending pro-Palestinian activists who refuse to dismantle a tent encampment on its New York City campus. This came after the Ivy League school declared a stalemate in talks seeking to end the polarizing protest. Protesters are demanding a ceasefire in the war with Hamas and the divestment of university assets in companies involved with the Israeli military and an end to US military assistance to Israel.
Now, for more on this, we're being joined by Dr. Malcolm Davis, Senior Analyst in Defence Strategy and Capability at Australian Strategic Policy Institute. He's joining us live from Canberra. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Sir, as I mentioned, there's hope of a possible truce deal, hostage release deal. Antony Blinken has labelled this deal by Israel as extraordinarily generous. What I'm trying to understand is, what do you think is different about the deal this time around that there is cautious optimism?
Look, I think that obviously it's a two-phase deal, as you pointed out. In the first phase, there is a pause in the fighting, and in return, Hamas release, I think it's 33 hostages. In the second phase, there is a prolonged period of calm, which essentially is a ceasefire, and the remaining hostages are released. But obviously from the Palestinian and the Gazan perspective, the Israelis are releasing significant numbers of Palestinian prisoners as well. So in effect, this is similar in some respects to previous attempts at a ceasefire. It's played out over 2 parts. It's designed to essentially avoid the suggestion that Israel would continue the war after the ceasefire ends. So I think that it's now down to Hamas to decide, do they want to take this opportunity and bring this conflict to an end, or do they want to be seen as the actor that actually prolongs the conflict?
Mr. Davis, now Biden has been facing mounting pressure back home over his handling of the war in Gaza. There have been protests. We have been seeing those visuals coming in. Do you feel that is one of the reasons, or the main reason, why he's also now eventually putting pressure on Netanyahu to go in for this truce deal and call for a ceasefire?
I think so, in the sense that, we are in an election year in the US, and Biden must be concerned that he would be losing the progressive wing of voters in the Democrat Party through his handling of this. And obviously the concern is that as a result of that, he loses the election and Trump gets in. So I think that Biden is trying to bring this conflict to a close. You now have widespread civil unrest occurring across US cities and universities, which is unhelpful to Biden's image of trying to be a statesman. So I do think Biden is now under pressure to bring this to a close, as much as Netanyahu is.
All right, remains to be seen now what decision comes from Hamas' end, but it seems like we're inching closer towards a ceasefire, finally, after November last year. Thank you so much for joining in. That was Dr. Malcolm Davis joining us from Canberra.
Thank you.
Now, Russia continues to make advances in the battlefield. But amidst the Russian advances in the ongoing war, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has made an unannounced visit to Ukraine.
But making his third visit to the country since the war broke out, the Secretary General of the Transatlantic Military Alliance held talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During his visit, the NATO boss admitted that his alliance members have failed to live up to their promises of military aid in recent months. But he has assured the war-torn country that the flow of arms and ammunition will now increase.
NATO allies have not delivered what they promised. The United States spent months not agreeing a package for Ukraine, and European allies have not delivered the amount of ammunition they promised. So now our responsibility is to ensure that these announcements are turned into real deliveries, physical deliveries of weapons and ammunition as soon as possible.
Stoltenberg's visit comes at a difficult time on the battlefield for Ukraine after a failed Ukrainian counter-offensive last year. Russia is taking advantage in manpower and ammunition.
The Russian army launched a missile attack on Odessa, Ukraine's southern port city. The building, called the Harry Potter Castle by locals because of the way it looks, its Gothic turreted style, was hit and was on fire. As of now, 4 people have been reported dead from the Russian strike.
The type of missile is currently being checked. Forensic specialists are carrying out the appropriate evaluations to this end. All services, including the State Emergency Service, are currently working to eliminate the consequences of this strike. Yet another war crime. After the primary conclusions are made, determining the type of weapon, we will be able to announce more precise information.
As authorities assess which type of missile hit the building, in an exclusive report by Reuters, the UN sanctions monitors have said that the debris was from a missile that landed in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on January 2nd, has been identified from a North Korean source.
Right, it's the Hwasong 11 series ballistic missile. Our report has the complete story. Listen to this.
Missile debris that landed in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on January 2nd was from a North Korean ballistic missile. That's according to a report from United Nations sanctions monitors to a Security Council committee and seen by Reuters on Monday. This footage is from days after the January strike. At the time, the local prosecutor's office showed fragments of the missile to the media, suggesting they could have been from one supplied by North Korea. In the report, the monitors concluded that the debris was from a Hwasong 11 series missile and is in violation of the arms embargo on North Korea. It's been under UN sanctions since 2006 over its ballistic missile and nuclear programs. In their report, the monitors say they, quote, could not independently identify from where the missile was launched, nor by whom. Information about the missile's trajectory, supplied by Ukraine, suggests it was launched from Russia, the report says.
Russia and the DPRK must be held accountable for their actions.
The U.S. and others have previously accused North Korea of transferring weapons to Russia to use against Ukraine, which it invaded over 2 years ago. Both have denied the accusations. Last year, they vowed to deepen military relations.
Skies over the Baltic regions are becoming dangerous for airplanes. Flights have been reporting an increasing number of missing or fake GPS signals.
Right, and the culprit is Russia, according to Baltic leaders. They've now warned that Russia's dangerous maneuvers could cause an air disaster soon. Finnair has suspended its flights to the Estonian city for 1 month due to GPS interference.
Now, the official statement states that flights will remain suspended between 29th of April and 31st of May till they come up with an alternative that doesn't require GPS altogether. Now, this comes after 2 Finnair flights heading to Estonia had to turn back to Finland due to GPS interference. Estonian minister described the act as a Russian hybrid attack.
The GPS jamming or blackout episodes have become regular since 2022, according to Eurocontrol, the European Organization for the Safety of Air Navigation, and of late they've been on the rise.
Now, what is GPS jamming? All modern planes are built with equipment that send and receive constant signals from global navigation satellite systems like US Global Positioning System, the GPS, and Europe's Galileo. This helps the pilot to navigate during the course of the flight. Now, what GPS jamming involves is overloading an aircraft's signal equipment with sustained interference, and that it can no longer send or receive information from its GPS systems.
A US-based GPS users lobby group says Russia is regularly attacking the aircraft, passengers and sovereignty of NATO countries. Around 985 GPS outages were recorded in the first 2 months of this year near the Baltic. This is 7 times more than cases recorded in the first 2 months of 2023. Around 1,371 cases were reported in 2023. Flights in and out of Britain are among thousands that have been affected by suspected Russian jamming.
The GPS jamming sessions mostly occur around Russia's Kaliningrad enclave, a key military post for Russia. In fact, these signals are also impeding signals used by boats in the Baltic Sea. To this effect, Swedish Navy has also warned about safety of shipping.
In mid-March, a military plane carrying British Defence Secretary Grant Shapps was hit by GPS jamming on its way back from Poland. Over 2,300 Ryanair flights have reported incidents of GPS interference since last August. Latvia's Air Baltic has reported similar problems as well. Now, an ex-German soldier is admitted to spying for Russia during a trial.
The soldier claims that he wished to avoid escalation in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. During his trial, the former German soldier admitted that what he did was wrong.
The 54-year-old has been accused of passing information to Russian intelligence service. This included the information like documents related to munition systems and aircraft technology. Ex-German soldier obtained these documents while working in the German Army's Equipment, Information Technology and In-Service Support Department.
Now, according to prosecutors, Thomas approached the Russian General Consulate in Bonn and the Russian Embassy in Berlin and offered his cooperation in May of last year. He says he was worried about Germany being dragged into the war through delivery of weapons to Ukraine. The German soldier's aim was to obtain information before a possible nuclear escalation to keep his family safe.
Now, he believed the German government wasn't looking out for the security of its citizens. Hearings in Thomas's case are set to last until late July.
But this is not a lone case. This month, investigators arrested the German-Russian men on suspicion of spying for Russia and planning attacks in Germany. A former German intelligence officer is also on trial in Berlin for spying. In November 2022, a German army reserve officer was handed a suspended sentence for passing information to Russian intelligence. German Chancellor Scholz has clearly said that we can never accept that espionage activities take place in the country, quote unquote. Three law enforcement officers have been shot dead and 4 others injured in the United States and North Carolina.
The suspect too has been killed. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department Chief Johnny Jennings said that the slain officers were part of a U.S. Marshals task force comprising of officers from multiple agencies. The officers were fired at while attempting to serve a warrant for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon as they arrived at the suspect's residence. 3 officers lost their lives while the suspect was killed in return fire. After a tense standoff, a SWAT team cleared the house and took 2 people in custody. The police chief said at least one of them had opened fire on the officers.
There were 3 members of the U.S. Marshals Task Force who were pronounced deceased, and there were 4 CMPD officers who were shot, one being in critical condition who is now in the hospital fighting for his life. A total of 8 law enforcement officers were shot by the suspects in this house.
The White House said President Biden has been briefed on the incident and has spoken with North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper.
You know, 3 people lost their lives today. And the most that I can ask of our community is that we honor and respect them for all the work that they've done, all the work that we will do to make it possible for our city to be safer.
And as per information that is just come in right now, the 4th officer in this case also has been declared dead. This is the latest that we have on this. Of course, we'll continue to track the developments on that front as well.
The investigations are still on, and we are going to be tracking that closely right here on WION World as one. Moving further from here, we shift focus to Africa. Now, heavy rains in Kenya's Rift Valley have killed at least 45 people. Floodwaters have swept away houses and cars, and officials are worried that the number of deaths could rise further.
Now, the latest deaths bring the toll from heavy rain and flooding within the last month to more than 140. More than 185,000 people have been displaced. The floods have caused widespread damage to infrastructure such as roads and bridges.
Right now, we have no plan. We are just pleading for help. We are just desperate because all we had was swept away by the floods. Schools resume next week, yet the kids have no uniforms, school shoes, bags. It's like we are starting a new chapter all over again. They have nothing.
At least 10 people are missing in western Kenya. The truck they were riding in was swept away by raging floodwaters while attempting to cross a river. According to a witness, a large group of people boarded the truck in hopes of being ferried across the swollen river. A government spokesperson has said that the hydroelectric dams are filled to capacity, which could lead to massive downstream overflow.
The Kenya Red Cross Society has said that they have rescued 536 people across the country since flooding began in the middle of March. The aid agency has been at the forefront of efforts to help stranded residents.
Dozens more have been killed and hundreds of thousands displaced by the intense downpour in other neighboring countries, including Tanzania. East Africa was hit by record floods during the last rainy season as well in late 2023. And with that, as always, time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. When we come back on the other side, India and Canada are in the middle of a fresh diplomatic row in the aftermath of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attending an event where separatist pro-Khalistan slogans were raised. New Delhi has summoned Canada's Deputy High Commissioner. We'll get you the full report.
Also on the other side, investors looking for a unique way into stock market's artificial intelligence boom are discovering an interesting opportunity in an unexpected sector, that's utilities. More details on the other side. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For WION, World is One.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Here's a look at what we've lined up for you on this side.
US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says he is hopeful Hamas would accept an extraordinarily generous offer to halt Israel's Gaza offensive in return for the release of hostages.
US President Joe Biden holds separate calls with leaders from Qatar, Egypt over Gaza ceasefire talks, discusses the dangers of a military escalation.
Yemen's Houthis target 2 US destroyers and the vessel Cyclades in the Red Sea, as well as the MSC Orion in the Indian Ocean, claims the Iran-aligned group's military spokesman Yahya Sarriah.
The debris from a missile that landed in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on the 2nd of January was from a North Korean Hwasong-11 series ballistic missile. United Nations sanctions monitors tells a Security Council committee.
Four people have been killed and 32 injured in a Russian missile attack on what locals call the Harry Potter Castle in the southern Ukrainian port of Odessa.
Four US law enforcement officials were killed and 5 others injured in a shootout as they were serving a warrant at a home in southern state of North Carolina.
Janata Dal Secular Critical Core Committee meet today to decide on Indian lawmaker Prajwal Ravana's suspension from the party 2 days after a sexual harassment case was registered against him.
Defending champion Aryna Sabalenka keeps her title defense alive in Madrid. The second seed ends Danielle Collins' 15-match winning streak in a blockbuster clash to reach the quarterfinals.
Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's advisor Shehzad Akbar has sued the Pakistani government.
Akbar has claimed that the Pakistan Inter-Services Intelligence was behind an acid attack against him in London.
Now, the attack took place at home in Hertfordshire last year. The attack took place in front of his daughter, who was then aged 4.
Akbar would have lost his eyesight in the attack. However, he was saved only because he was wearing spectacles, which were badly damaged. The attack caused acid burns that required treatment on his head and one arm, and left permanent scars as well.
Akbar sought refuge in Britain after jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan was toppled from power 2 years ago. Akbar was leading Pakistan's efforts to combat corruption when in office. He has now accused ISI and Pakistan army officers for the attack. He has also claimed that they were responsible for an attempt to assassinate Imran Khan in November 2022 and the murder of Arshad Sharif, an investigative journalist who often worked closely with him.
Arshad had also fled Pakistan after Khan was ousted. Akbar also has accused ISI for blackmailing him by abducting his brother back in Islamabad last year and making him speak against Imran Khan in court for his brother's return. His brother said he was abducted by people dressed as police officers. Now, India and Canada are in the middle of a fresh diplomatic row.
Well, this time it has to do with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attending an event where separatist pro-Khalistan slogans were raised. In the aftermath of this incident, New Delhi summoned Canada's Deputy High Commissioner.
Now, thousands of Sikhs attended one of the biggest yearly gatherings in Toronto to celebrate Vaisakhi. The event was attended by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who promised the Sikh community that his government would always protect their rights and freedoms at all costs.
But what was supposed to be a day of celebration was marred by anti-India slogans raised at the venue. Slogans for Khalistan, an independent Sikh state, could be heard in the presence of Trudeau and other Canadian leaders. Taking strong objections to the incident, India summoned the Canadian Deputy High Commissioner. India's Foreign Affairs Ministry said it conveyed deep concerns and strong protests at such actions being allowed to continue unchecked at the event.
Canada has the highest population of Sikhs outside their home state of Punjab in India, and the country has seen many demonstrations that have irked India.
Bilateral diplomatic relations between India and Canada nosedived last year after Trudeau said Canada was actively pursuing leads that Indian agents were linked to the murder of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar. New Delhi has denied the Indian government's role in Nijjar's murder.
Hardeep Singh Nijjar was shot dead outside a Gurdwara on the 18th of June in Surrey last year, a Vancouver suburb with a large Sikh population. He was a strong advocate for Sikh homeland in the form of an independent Khalistani state. The Indian government had declared Nijjar as a designated terrorist in July 2020.
Russia has warned of freezing US assets in the country, including property and cash of US citizens and investors.
And this comes as senior Russian officials voiced strong opposition to the bill allowing the confiscation of Russian assets. The Kremlin deems such actions illegal and warns of retaliation should the United States proceed. However, legal experts continue to debate the legitimacy of such measures, setting the stage for a complex diplomatic and legal standoff.
Это очень опасный прецедент. Это обсуждение активно ведется и в Соединенных Штатах, и в Европе. И это не что иное, как слом всех основ экономической системы. Это посягательство на государственную собственность, на государственные авуары, на частную собственность. Это никоим образом нельзя воспринимать как какие-то законные действия. Они противозаконные, и, соответственно, они должны стать, будут так или иначе, предметом неких ответных действий, и предметом судебных разбирательств.
A closer look at the frozen Russian assets reveals a substantial sum totaling almost $300 billion. primarily held in foreign currencies of the West. Reuters calculations reveal that a substantial amount of money is held in European Union and US assets, along with other countries. The total amount of foreign currency and gold reserves total $612 billion, while legally frozen. EU has begun utilizing the interest generated from these holdings, arguing for its legality and necessity in supporting Ukrainian interests.
However, the utilization and potential seizure of these assets pose significant risk to the global financial landscape. The standoff threatens to set a precedent for the weaponization of financial assets in diplomatic conflicts. Critics warn of potential economic fallout, including destabilization of the US dollar as the world's dominant currency. Moreover, concerns arise over the unintended consequences of such actions, including retaliation from other nations and the potential breakdown of international legal norms as diplomatic efforts continue. The world watches closely, aware of the far-reaching implications of this financial standoff.
Investors looking for a unique way into the stock market's artificial intelligence boom are discovering an interesting opportunity.
In an unexpected sector, that too, and we're talking about utilities here. This sector is typically considered the least exciting area of stocks, and this report looks at AI boom's secret winners and the companies expected to power it. Take a look.
Chip makers, computer equipment manufacturers, and automobile companies are trying to get involved in the hot AI boom. Investors noted that AI is also driving the latest stock market spike. Meta platform stock fell sharply recently, its worst performance since October 2022. The sell-off came after the firm announced additional AI development spending. On the other hand, Alphabet, Google's parent company, reached a market valuation of $2 trillion on Friday, and Microsoft's shares rose. Quarterly data showed that the corporations' AI advances caused their stock surge. However, AI technology requires a lot of energy to build and operate, so utilities serve that role. In 2023, the S&P 500 index's utilities sector fell 10%, its worst year since 2008. Considering companies do poorly during periods of high interest rates, that wasn't a surprise. This year, though, utility stocks have risen 4.4%. The hope for rising demand from the new power-sucking data centers needed for AI's expansion is the best change in utilities' mood. Across the U.S., utilities are preparing for historic increases in electricity demand led by data centers in AI. AI is poised to help drive a 900% jump in power demand for data centers in the Chicago area alone. While AI is revolutionizing the way we work and live, it is important to remember that this new technology could also make or break other sectors. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, let's now take a look at all of the developments from the world of technology. Messaging platform Telegram has restored access to several chatbots that were being used by Ukraine security agencies. These chatbots were being used by the Ukrainian forces to collect information about Russia's war effort.
A bot is an automated feature that allows apps users to submit or ask for information. Now, some of the bots run by Ukraine's government allow people to report the whereabouts of Russian military hardware and personnel inside Ukraine. Ukraine's Center for Strategic Communication said that 3 affected bots used by Ukraine's SBU security service and digital ministry for the war effort have been unblocked. A Telegram spokesperson said that bots were temporarily disabled due to a false positive but have since been reinstated.
Telegram is widely used as a source of information in Ukraine and Russia. The app has been a go-to place for posting and accessing unfiltered information about the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posts his daily video addresses on the app, while the Ukrainian armed forces use the app to warn its citizens of incoming airstrikes and to document battlefield developments.
Brussels is set to launch an investigation into Meta's Facebook and Instagram due to concerns regarding their handling of disinformation from Russia and other nations. The European Commission suspects Meta's moderation efforts are inadequate when it comes to stopping the spread of political advertisements that could affect elections. EU officials are particularly concerned about Russian interference in upcoming European elections. Additionally, they worry that as per the EU's Digital Services Act, Meta's users flagging mechanism for illegal content isn't user-friendly enough. If found guilty, Meta could face fines up to 6% of its global annual turnover. This action is part of the EU's efforts to regulate big tech amid fears of disinformation, undermining democracy ahead of the upcoming elections. According to reports, Meta will have 5 working days to respond to the Commission's concerns for face measures under the DSA.
Austria-based advocacy group NOYB has filed a privacy complaint against ChatGPT. It alleged that OpenAI's generative AI chatbot ChatGPT provided incorrect information which potentially violates EU policy rules. It claims that ChatGPT failed to correct inaccurate responses when asked personal questions. Despite requests from the complainant, OpenAI reportedly refused to rectify or delete the data, citing technical limitations. NOYB has filed a complaint with the Austrian Data Protection Authority to investigate OpenAI's data processing practices. In the past, OpenAI has acknowledged the tool's tendency to respond with plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers.